The Fedorov automatic rifle. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture the trenches of World War I. Mud, cold, the whistle of shrapnel, and the monotonous volleys of bolt-action rifles. A soldier, having fired his 5-round clip, once again manually chambers a new round, working the bolt with a familiar, weary click-clack. Now picture another soldier. He shoulders a strange, compact wooden-stocked weapon, squeezes the trigger, and a burst. A short, controlled burst of 2 or 3 bullets flies from the barrel. The enemy, 100 meters away, huddled in a shell crater, doesn't even have time to understand what's happening. This isn't a heavy Maxim machine gun requiring a crew of several men. This is the personal weapon of an infantryman. This is the future already born. And it was born in Russia. Sounds like science fiction? It's not. This is the Fedorov automatic rifle. But why have you hardly heard of it? Why didn't this weapon become the primary symbol of the Russian infantry, like the Kalashnikov assault rifle later did? Why did its creator, Vladimir Grigorievich Fedorov, remain in the shadows? This is not just a story about an engineering solution. This is a story about the inertia of a system, a tragic confluence of circumstances, a cartridge famine, and a man who saw further and deeper than all his contemporaries. This is the tale of how Russia, almost single-handedly, invented modern infantry combat, but at the most crucial moment turned away from its own breakthrough. Intrigued? Then get comfortable, we're beginning. Part 1. The epic's context: what was happening in the world of weapons. To understand the scale of Fedorov's thinking, we must immerse ourselves in the early 20th century. The infantry's primary weapon was the bolt-action rifle firing a powerful full-sized rifle cartridge. The Russian 3-line Mosin rifle, caliber 7.62 mm, the German Mauser, the British Lee Enfield. Their logic: accurate fire at long distances, up to a kilometer or more. The cartridge was powerful, heavy, with significant recoil. Machine guns had already appeared, but these were heavy, stationary weapons for mowing down area targets. And what was on the cutting edge of thought? Experiments were underway. In Mexico, there was already the Mondragon rifle, essentially the first self-loading rifle adopted for service. But it was finicky and complex. In Europe, they were thinking about automatic fire. But everyone ran into the same problem: the powerful rifle cartridge. Trying to fire it in bursts made the weapon uncontrollable, caused excessive wear, and led to overheating. A compromise was needed. And here, the brilliant idea of an intermediate cartridge was born, less powerful than a rifle cartridge but more powerful than a pistol round. It would allow for the creation of lightweight automatic weapons for firing short bursts at realistic combat distances of 200 to 400 meters. The idea was in the air, but it was a Russian gunsmith who materialized it first. Part 2. The Teacher and the Prophet. Who was Vladimir Fedorov? Vladimir Grigorievich Fedorov was not a self-taught inventor from a remote village. He was a product of the empire's best military engineering school, the Mikhailovskoye Artillery School, the Mikhailovskaya Artillery Academy. He trained at the Sestrorezsk factory under the direction of Sergei Mosin himself. This gave him a foundation, but the main thing was his appointment to the Artillery Committee, where he had access to all the world's novelties, reports, and test data. He was, as we would say now, the chief analyst for small arms. And he analyzed not on paper but in blood. The key experience was the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905. Russian soldiers armed with 3-line rifles faced the Japanese, who had Arisaka rifles chambered for the 6.5 by 50 mm cartridge. This cartridge was less powerful, but the Japanese bullet, due to its caliber and shape, inflicted terrible wounds. Studying medical reports, Fedorov made a paradoxical conclusion. At main combat distances, up to 400 meters, a smaller caliber under certain conditions could be more effective. The 6.5 mm bullet, upon entering the body, was prone to tumbling and changing trajectory, causing torn, severe wounds. The more powerful and heavier 7.62 mm bullet often passed clean through the body unless it hit bone. This observation became a cornerstone. Fedorov understood. The future belonged to a smaller caliber and automatic fire. And he set to work not blindly, but with cold scientific calculation. Part 3. The birth of an idea, the cartridge and the automatic rifle. Around 1906, Fedorov began work on an automatic rifle. At first, he tried to adapt the Mosin cartridge, 7.62 by 54 millimeters, for automatic fire. But he quickly concluded this was a dead end. Powerful recoil, enormous stress on the mechanisms. His own cartridge was needed, and he created it. The Fedorov cartridge, 6.5 by 57 millimeters. This was the world's first true intermediate cartridge. Yes, it was more powerful than the Japanese Arisaka, but significantly weaker than the three-line round. It was the golden mean, a bottle-shaped case without a pronounced rim, which improved feeding from a magazine, a pointed bullet. Essentially, it was a reduced and lightened copy of the German 7.92 by 57 millimeter cartridge. A brilliant engineering layout. For this cartridge, in 1913, the Fedorov automatic rifle was born. Not a self-loading rifle, but an automatic rifle capable of both single shots and burst fire. The design used short recoil operation, locking with tilting locking plates. The weapon fired from a closed bolt, increasing the accuracy of the first shot. The magazine initially held 5, then 10, and by 1916, 25 rounds. Imagine. A soldier in a trench has 25 rounds in a magazine against an enemy rifleman's 5. This was a revolution in fire density. Part 4. Collision with the system. A weapon without prospects. This is where the tragedy begins. Fedorov was an enthusiast and a visionary. But the system he existed in thought in terms of the last war. The main argument of the conservatives: there won't be enough cartridges. An automatic rifle means high consumption. Burst fire is wasteful. The logic of conserving ammunition seemed more important than the logic of destroying the enemy. The climax was a lecture for Emperor Nicholas II at the Mikhailovsky Academy. Fedorov passionately spoke about the future. The emperor listened and delivered his verdict. The weapon was without prospects. The motive was the same. Cartridges are a pity. After this highest of reviews, all the bureaucratic structures that had been somewhat active froze. The promising order for 25,000 automatic rifles shrank to 900. Think about it. In 1913 and 14, Russia could have received the world's first mass infantry automatic weapon. But history does not tolerate the subjunctive mood. World War I began. Part 5: War and a Forced Compromise. The cartridge famine. War puts everything in its place. It turned out that there was indeed a shortage of cartridges for the standard three-line rifles. Industry couldn't cope, and they remembered the automatic rifle, supposedly greedy for cartridges. Only when things got really bad. But a problem arose. Organizing production of the new Fedorov cartridge in the conditions of wartime chaos was impossible. And Fedorov, being a pragmatist, made a compromise. He redesigned the automatic rifle for the Japanese 6.5 by 50 millimeter Arisaka cartridge. There were relatively many of these cartridges. They were purchased from allies, Britain and Japan, and some were produced in Petrograd. The Japanese cartridge was weaker than Fedorov's own, but it worked. It was a forced but reasonable decision to somehow get the weapon into the troops. Part 6. Baptism by Fire and Belated Recognition. In the autumn of 1916, the first and only company in the Imperial Army fully armed with Fedorov automatic rifles, the 158th Infantry Regiment, was sent to the Romanian front. The weapon performed brilliantly. High fire density, maneuverability in trench warfare, psychological effect on the enemy. The soldiers valued it. Finally, recognition came. Hasty organization of production began at the Kovrov plant. Here fate brought Fedorov together with another genius, Vasily Degtyaryov, his future right-hand man and pupil. But time had been lost. Before the revolution and Russia's exit from the war, very few were made, those same several thousand units. And then came the 17th year. Part 7: Soviet Power, the Civil War, and Long Oblivion. Interestingly, the new Soviet government showed greater interest in the automatic rifle than the Tsarist one. Fedorov, without hesitation, sided with the Reds, perhaps remembering the Tsars without prospects. He was appointed chief engineer at the Kovrov machine gun plant. In the conditions of the Civil War, where the density of fire in close combat was crucial, the automatic rifle was very useful. From 1920 to 1924, another approximately 3,200 automatic rifles were produced. But here, too, there was a problem: the Arasaka cartridge. They didn't have their own, stockpiles were running out, and purchasing from Japan after the Civil War was unrealistic. Unification began. The young Red Army bet on the proven 7.62mm cartridge. In 1928, all work on the 6.5mm caliber was officially closed. The Fedorov automatic rifle was removed from service and sent to warehouses. It resurfaced occasionally. In the Winter War with Finland, there are accounts of individual examples in the militia at the beginning of the Great Patriotic War. But without its native cartridge, it was no longer the same weapon. Fedorov's era ended, never having truly begun. Part 8. Engineering Analysis. Why didn't it take off? Let's break down the pros and cons of the automatic rifle like true analysts. Pros: ahead of their time. The very concept. A lightweight infantry automatic weapon under an intermediate cartridge. High accuracy of the first shot. Closed bolt. A convenient, high-capacity 25-round magazine. Fantastic for its time. An effective wounding caliber, whose validity was later proven. 5.45 mm in the USSR, 5.56 in NATO. Cons: objective for that time. Complexity and cost of production. Many milled parts requiring high-skilled labor. In conditions of devastation, establishing mass production was extremely difficult. Overheating problem. After continuous firing of about 300 rounds, that's only 12 magazines, the barrel would overheat to the point where firing became impossible. For comparison, an AK gives up after more than 1,400 rounds. Non uniforme magazines. Each automatic rifle had its own 3 magazines, which might not fit another. This is a nightmare for supply in a mass army. Dependence on a foreign cartridge. This was the main fatal factor. Part 9. Historical irony and Fedorov's legacy. Here is where it gets most interesting. History has put everything in its place, showing Fedorov was right. The Germans in World War II, having gone through the trench experience of World War I, arrived at the same idea and created their intermediate cartridge 7.92 by 33mm Kurs and, for it, the STG-44 assault rifle. This is a direct confirmation of Fedorov's concept, only 30 years later. The USSR, after the war, having studied the German experience, adopted the intermediate cartridge 7.62 by 39mm and the legendary AK-47. Mikhail Kalashnikov created his weapon, but the very logic, an automatic rifle under an intermediate cartridge, was predetermined by Fedorov. The entire world ultimately switched to low-impulse cartridges of around 5.5mm for main infantry weapons, confirming the correctness of choosing a small caliber for increased controllability and, paradoxically, lethal effect. Vladimir Grigorievich Fedorov did not create a mass-produced masterpiece. He created a prototype of the future. He was a teacher and mentor. At that same Kovrov plant, alongside him worked Vasily Degtyaryov, creator of the DP light machine gun, Georgy Shpagin, PPSH, Sergei Semenov, SVT, SKS. Fedorov was the brain center, the school that nurtured a whole galaxy of great Soviet gunsmiths. His books on the history of weapons became classics. He lived to be 92 years old, becoming a lieutenant general of the Engineering Technical Service, an academician, a hero of labor. He saw his ideas, embodied in metal by others, conquer the world. Lessons of history and a call to action. The story of the Fedorov automatic rifle is not just a tale about a weapon. It's a parable about how difficult it is to break through the walls of conservatism, how important it is to listen to visionaries in time, and how tragically the fate of even the most brilliant idea can unfold if it is not given a chance at the right moment. We have come a long way together, from the trenches of the Russo-Japanese War to the blueprints in the Artillery Committee's office, from the Emperor's indifference to the enthusiasm of the Red Army soldiers, from the Kovrov plant to the battlefields of the Great Patriotic War. I hope I managed to keep your attention and show how deep and dramatic this topic is. And now, it's your turn to act. Did this story hook you? Do you see parallels with today? Share your opinion in the comments. Write what surprised you the most. Deal? And of course, subscribe to the channel. There are many more such detailed, almost detective-like analyses of forgotten technologies, great inventions, and turning points in history ahead. Hit the bell so you don't miss out. Peaceful skies to everyone, and until we meet again in our virtual history club.